Episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus didn't have a special character focus like many of us were expecting, with instead Pomni continuing to lead the story emotionally, and the others taking even more of a backseat than they did in Episode 1. However, through the adventure of the characters while Pomni was having her more emotional moments, we got to see not just how the characters' personalities play out, but how they interact with each other, particularly Jaxs, who I think really ties the entire group together, but not in a good way. Jaxs appears not just to be the real villain of the Digital Circus, but really, like the Digital Circus itself, is one big punishment for him. My name is Deepcut, and head on over to Random Universe to check out the animation we made of Jaxs and Pomni getting married.
Of course I do.
Link in the pinned comment down below. Now, tomorrow's video will be going a lot deeper on the mythological significance of the show, but it's no secret that the show is essentially Gnosticism in digital wrapping paper. For those who don't know, Gnosticism was a movement from the early centuries of Christianity that reimagined the Old Testament God as a lower entity that had trapped humans in the material world in order to make them worship him, with Jesus being sent as the son of the highest creator God to rescue our souls and return us to the heavenly dimension above. In the show, the Digital Circus acts as a sort of digital metaphor, with the characters being trapped in the game against their will, losing their memories of the real world that they came from, but knowing that they aren't supposed to be here. And unfortunately, while here, they are trapped by Cain, who acts as the Demiurge. The Old Testament God as the Demiurge is presented in Gnostic texts not as purely evil, but instead as ignorant to the fact that these divine sparks he uses to animate the humans he created comes from a heavenly realm above him that he can't understand. Cain himself is ignorant, treating these characters not like full humans, but humans who are wanting to try and play his game. He is simply programmed to treat them this way, it isn't his fault, he's unaware of what a human is beyond how they interact with the game, and thus he doesn't understand their greater needs when they are trapped in the game. As a result, The Amazing Digital Circus isn't really a fun game or a paradise for them the way it is for kids for about half an hour at a time before they inevitably get bored. Instead, the Digital Circus is really more so of a prison, one whose limits seem to find ways to endlessly torture each of its characters, but particularly Jaxs, with him being a large part of the problem for others, turning what could be a decent existence into something far worse. Emphasizing this idea, the creator of The Amazing Digital Circus, Gooseworks, has said that out of all the characters, Jaxs deserves to be in the Digital Circus the most. This shows that there really was an intent to not just the Digital Circus being a surreal, colorful prison, but to Jaxs in particular suffering there because of its limitations. This is interesting to me because on the surface, Jaxs should be the one who most enjoys the Digital Circus. Gooseworks released a list of ages for the characters, and Jaxs is one of the two youngest characters on the list, both being just 22 years old. But Jaxs, of course, has a more childlike personality than the others as well, and not just in that he might seem like he'd enjoy the wacky themes of the Digital Circus inherently. Jaxs is not just childlike, he's actually really immature, and because of that, he's borderline dangerous. Jaxs has made it clear that he finds it funny when bad things happen to people and he sees them get hurt, but episode 2 took it to an almost uncomfortable level even with its cartoon basis. Characters like Zooble hate the NPCs, wanting to distance themselves as soon as they learn that Cain has made these non-playable characters with a more sophisticated AI, which ultimately just makes them harder to deal with for characters like Zooble. Jaxs, on the other hand, seems to enjoy them because he can let loose even more so than he does on the human characters. Jaxs has no problem harassing the other humans, of course, even being so mean as to just push them over, as we saw in episode 1. He of course knows they feel no pain, and even when they are flying off a cliff in episode 2, they aren't worried about pain or even damage. Because of that, Jaxs doesn't seem to care for the excitement of the missions, no longer caring about the simulated wind through his hair, so to speak, and instead what he really enjoys is what he can inflict on other characters. Every step of the way, Jaxs is disappointed that there isn't more conflict, with there not being one big final battle in the end. Instead, one thing that seems to really bring him joy is sabotaging the Candy Kingdom after they complete their mission. After meeting the Fudge Monster, Jaxs convinces him that if he helps them complete that mission, the Fudge Monster can eat all of the townspeople that he wants. This culminates with the gang running off back to the circus and leaving the people behind to suffer and be eaten by that Fudge Monster. These AI are supposed to be among the most sophisticated that Cain has created, with Gummy Goo in particular being so realistic that Pomni can't really distinguish him from herself. himself, seeing the two of them as just complex piles of code given a new fake existence that they are now trapped in. Jaxs has then unleashed great psychological horror onto the entire Candy Kingdom, making them suffer on an emotional level that Gummy Goo we know is capable of. This is rather disturbing behavior, and it's no coincidence that it simulates the behaviors of real-life people playing video games, especially children. Now, video games currently don't make use of AI in this way, so there is less of a moral gray area with it. When a young person plays Grand Theft Auto and goes around murdering sex workers, they aren't attacking something that is programmed to think about what is happening to them. The character is not experiencing it on an emotional level, but it still goes from kind of humorous to pretty disturbing to think about how mainstream it is to use a game like GTA or Red Dead Redemption to just act really vile and evil, like a villainous human. Now, the AI NPCs are a bit unique because they are something that exists only for a short while and are created with certain limits. They simulate experiencing pain, but like the human characters, they likely don't feel any actual pain, just simulated horror as they are devoured. Even when it comes to the humans though, Jaxs' behavior is very concerning. While Jaxs has Kane as a role model for how to treat the NPCs and thus knows he can push their limits without Kane telling him to stop, the humans are different. While Jaxs gets away with hurting the others, it's mostly when Kane isn't around, and a lot of what he does involves just abusing them within the missions to make things more entertaining for himself. The characters don't feel pain like I said, but they do feel stress, and instead of trying to actually have fun, Jaxs likes to put them in increasingly stressful situations for his own fun, constantly throwing Pomni out of the car and threatening to expose the secrets of Gangle if she doesn't do what Jaxs wants. In the real world, Jaxs very well may have been an actual physical bully growing up, and that is perhaps why this game was so interesting to him. He didn't care about the colors or the avatars, he just liked a world where you could seemingly do anything. But like with a lot of immature children, he would quickly become bored with its limits. The Digital Circus allows him to be violent without having to worry about pain, but because of that, he started to feel less joy out of causing pain, it would seem. Like a 12-year-old playing Grand Theft Auto just to kill people on the streets, he likely got bored of the basics of the game in a very short time and immediately began trying to find more and more ways to exploit the limitations. This means not just hurting the villains on missions like you are supposed to, but finding ways to get the NPCs to interact in ways that cause untold horror, a Candy Kingdom apocalypse even. And that's going to be really dangerous when Jaxs continues to turn that aggression towards the other humans. In theory, his antics are harmless because there is no pain, but the real issue of course is abstraction. This happens essentially when a character becomes too stressed and they can no longer maintain the code that holds their identity together, becoming an abstract mess of polygons and code that runs wild like a monster. For now, he's just pushing the limits for fun, but one day that will probably evolve into Jaxs creating the most disastrous scenario when he learns how to glitch out of bounds like Pomni did, or find some other errors in Kane's programming that allow him to do something he thinks will be funny, but will ultimately cause someone like Gangle or Pomni to abstract. That is perhaps the most horrifying outcome within the circus, as even with a normal abstraction, the others can still honor your memory together, hold a funeral, and continue with life, trying to make peace with the world they are in. But how do you do that when in a world without death, one of you manages to become a murderer? But for more information on who Jaxs might accidentally abstract, make sure you subscribe because our next video is going to break down the insane mythology that inspires the show, including what Jaxs' role might be in that. See you guys there.
And do you, Jaxs, take Pomni to be your lawfully wedded wife?
Of course I do. No, wait, why would I say that?